Morning everybody, happy rainy day. Hopefully it will stop soon. So I'm just doing some work with Theo, the Cane Corso here, who we've got in, and we discovered the other day that he's not that great with men. So we have a lot of farm workers on the farm, and let's go picking the fruit and cutting the grass and doing all sorts. So it's a good opportunity for me to just work Theo around the challenge of workmen, and particularly dogs often will react to workmen in high-vis jackets. It triggers them. Hey, sit. So I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about pressure with dogs. So pressure comes down to two things: pressure of distance and pressure of the time spent in that situation for. So sometimes dogs can cope with being further away from something that is a trigger for them, and they can cope with being in that situation for maybe 5-10 seconds or a bit longer. But if you give it any longer than that, or if you get any closer to the challenge, then that can sometimes push them into what we call defense-fight drive or defense-flight drive, depending on what their behavior symptom is when they approach that challenge. So with Theo here, what I'm doing, I'm just going to bring you down so you can see. I'm looking at two things. Obviously I can't check on his ear position very well because he's got, unfortunately, plastic surgical ears, which were done before the owners got him. Sit. But what I'm going to look at is his tail position. So as I'm approaching whatever the challenge is, I'm going to feel through the lead where he's positioning himself. So I want the lead to be relaxed. I want him to be by my side so that I'm giving him leadership and taking him towards the challenge, rather than him being in a position where he feels powerful or vulnerable by being in front of me. So that's the first thing. I've got the right lead on him. I've got a firm grip on the lead. And then what I do is then start working him towards the challenge. But I'm going to monitor where he's positioning himself. So I'm going to feel through the lead where he is. So here we've just got some guys coming out and a van coming out. And if you look at his tail position here, his tail is starting to come up, his head and chest is coming up. Theo, let's go. And I'm just going to recall him and just say, Theo, let's go. So as I see that change and he starts to become a little bit stimulated, let's go. So we're going to just watch again. Good boy. Yes. So as we come nearer, we can see what's good about Theo, let's go, is actually when he starts to feel a little bit uncomfortable, he starts to slow down. And then he'll look up at me for direction. And that's what I want in a dog. I want them to look at me. When they feel a bit unsure, I want them to look at me to get that communication as to what I want him to do. So it's really key that you're paying attention to your dog and you're giving them the right direction, which in his case is, let's go. If he was to react, I'd give him a correction and say, leave it. And then I'd say, let's go. So let's just look again. So we've got some guys working here, just getting in the van. So I'm just giving him a little bit of lead, just to see what he does. So he's walking nicely here. So if I want to just check him and just have him come back to me, I'm just going to say here. And then if he starts to accelerate, Theo, sit. I might just have him sit in that position for a moment, just at a distance from the challenge. So a lot of it is about allowing the dog to take in a situation, to actually observe and be interested and know how to cope in that situation. But don't try and do it when you're right next to the challenge. Don't try and do it when you're right next to the man or the dog. Let's go. So we're going to go a little bit closer. So I'm just looking at his tail position. It's just kind of midline. Here. Relax. Relax. Good boy. Good boy. And then if I don't get a reaction, then I'm just going to praise him. So we'll just see how he feels about a guy walking next to him. So he's acknowledging that he's there because he's turning his head. And sometimes dogs will start to accelerate as the challenge is getting closer to them. So they'll try and accelerate to get themselves out of that situation. So I'll just often work a dog parallel to the challenge or the stimulus, and from a distance where they feel fairly comfortable. And then what I'm going to do is start building that distance, getting closer and closer, and start working them around the challenge. Good boy. And then I'm just going to start giving him a little bit of leash. Let's go. And then I'm just going to start gathering him in. Let's go. So at this stage, it doesn't matter if he's slightly ahead of me because I'm away from the challenge. Let's go. As he drifts away. Theo, let's go. I'm just going to gather him in. And then go towards the challenge again. So this is quite challenging for him. Let's go. Because you've got guys, you've got fruit carts, you've got lots of noise, lots of everything. So you can see he's licking his lips. Let's go. So because the people are getting closer, I'm just going to shorten him up a little bit, but my lead isn't tight. I'm just going to shorten him up a little bit. Good boy. Let's go. See how he hides behind me sometimes? Let's go. Relax, relax. So that moment where he turned and had a spurt of energy, that's the anxiety. So I'm just going to say relax and just put a little bit of back pressure on the lead. Good fella. Good boy. So now we've got people coming out here. So I'm not going to take him straight towards them, because that would be what I call setting him up to fail. So I'm going to keep walking past, and then I'm just going to sit. I'm just going to have him sit so that he can observe. Good boy. Good boy. Let's go. So the key thing is, when you're working a dog that feels challenged by certain things, people, dogs, men, kids, what they need is leadership. What they need is for you to give them direction. They need you to correct the behavior you don't want, which is the barking, the lunging, the growling. But then they need you to give them direction as to what you do want them to do. So it's all about building trust. And you've got to put them in those situations in order for them to learn how to cope with them. But you've got to think about the distance and the time spent in those situations for. So I'm not going to work him for half an hour around there, going down the tunnels where the workers are and trying to walk him straight past them. Not at this stage, because he's not ready for it. So you've got to build it up. So that's your little project. So if you've got a dog that's reactive to anything, get them on a lead that controls them and expose them to the challenge, but make sure you're giving them leadership and direction so that they understand, and be observant about them looking up at you. Because when they look up at you, that's them asking for direction. That's them asking, what do I do? How do I get myself out of this situation? I'm feeling a bit anxious. What do you want me to do? Hey, good stuff. Well, have a happy Friday. And I hope that helps some of you that have got dogs that react to whatever it is. Sit, sit. Good boy. Good boy. Yes. Say bye. See you guys.